thanks a million for joining us. I've just realised someone we can both call Mam from down here.
Yes, you
That's
can.
someone that you've battered us both before now on stage, haven't you?
Well, obviously not enough.
So welcome to Lynn Paul. Lynn, we've been doing a few of these chats over lockdown and all that, and it's just talking all things Blood Brothers, and it's just it's conversational and a bit of fun. So the way we've usually been starting them is we'll talk a little bit more about your early career in a bit, but what was your first sort of introduction to Blood Brothers? What would you start your Blood Brothers journey, if you like?
Well, I was working down the road from the Phoenix Theatre in the Cockney Club. I was doing a cabaret show there, and Carl Wayne was actually in Blood Brothers. He was the narrator. As you know, I'm teaching ducks how to swim. Anyway, so he came down to see me because we were great mates, and he came down to see the show after your show. And he said to me, "Why don't you audition for Mrs. J?" And I said, well, I said, I don't even know what it is, first of all. I said, but I don't act. I've never acted. And he said, well, no, he said, I have to be honest with you. He said, it's not really a great acting role, Lynn. He said, the big actress is the Mrs. Lyons. He said, so you could do Mrs. J, not a problem. I think it was a bit of a backhanded compliment, but anyway. So I went away, I thought about it, and my agent put me up. And I actually saw Bob Thompson, and had just had Ryan. I'd just had my son Ryan. And I went down and did just one audition with him and with Rod Edwards. And he said, no, he didn't think that I had the mother thing together. And I never thought any more about it. That was it. Until somebody else said to me about 2 or 3 years later, well, in fact, it was 7 years later because Ryan was 7. And they said, why don't you, have you tried Blood Brothers? I said, yeah, I said, did once before, but I wasn't wanted. And they said, well, try again. So I talked to my mum, and she said, write to Bill Kenwright. And I said, well, I don't know what you think that's going to do, but okay, I will. So I did. I got a letter by return post, and 3 weeks later, I was on the stage waiting for Mr. Palfreyman and everybody else to come. Well, were you there?
Oh, I remember. It was a lot later.
No, it was a lot later, yeah. But anyway, I was waiting for you lot to come on stage, and I never forget standing there, and I was shaking like a leaf, and I thought, what the hell have I done? What have I done, you know? But it was a baptism of fire, and I thoroughly, and it was the best time of my life, and that's how I got the job.
Oh, brilliant.
What was that, Liam? Was that 96, was it?
Ryan was 7, he's now 31.
Oh.
So I mean, you work it, and my maths is terrible. 23 years ago, a long time ago.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, my goodness.
No, and I was so, Stan, I mustn't call you Stan, must I? Steve.
It's fine.
I don't know you as Steve, that's
I know. Lord and Blood Brothers does.
And I'll never forget when I went to see the show, and I saw, obviously the night before I went to see it, and I came in for the rehearsals because they only wanted me to see it once, that was it. And I came in and I thought, oh my God, I've got to meet all these actors and that, and you were all so fantastic. But I was so in awe of you and Keith, because when Keith came in with his pink pants on and his, I just couldn't see this narrator. He was so strong, and you, I was just so in awe. You had no idea what it did.
Well, for someone who says they weren't an actress, you always have been one of my favourites. And it's not just because we're doing this now, but you always have. And I think it's a brilliant acting part, Mrs. J. I know there's a lot of singing and all the rest of it, but I think it's a great acting. And if you emote like you do at the end, it really does get you as an audience member.
Yeah, I think it does, but I think for me, I mean, it was perhaps not quite as difficult as it might have been for other Mrs. J's, because I'm a northerner. I've gone through so many rough times. I mean, I've had a career that's gone up and then dropped so low. I thought I could never get any lower. And as a matter of fact, right this very minute, I think I'm going even lower. But I think it was so relatable. It was actually me. you know. So, and that makes it so much easier when you can relate to, you know, to the part like that.
And you know what, as a mum yourself, do you use the fact that you've got Ryan, or a son, to tap into that character as Mrs. J? Do you think that really helps?
Oh God, oh, massively, massively, because I put myself in situations where it could be that Ryan did this, or Ryan said that, or he could be in that situation, and my God, what would I do if he was in that kind of situation? And I very much relate to Ryan right the way through it, all the time. The end is an absolute bloody nightmare, because at the end, when he's lying there, and I think, don't think of Ryan, don't think of Ryan, you know, it's awful.
That's great though. So you really use that in your acting. You really use that.
Yeah. Don't misunderstand. I'm not a method actress, because when I walk off stage, it's straight away. Cheers, everybody. There's no method with me, I'll tell you now.
Yeah, one thing we often hear, Lynn, when we're doing the workshops in schools, and we sort of work with GCSE and A-level students that have been in to see it. You
do a marvellous job, so I hear.
Well, they always say at the end when we do a Q&A with them, you know, they always say, it's obviously you're the Mrs. J that they're seeing, and they always say, she's really crying. Does she do that every night, or does she do that every afternoon? And we're like, well, yeah, she's feeling it every night. She does that every night.
Yeah. It's not easy though. I don't know whether you two will agree, whether you've had these crying scenes or whether you've had to show emotion, but sometimes you really have to plumb to the depths and think of things that you really don't want to think about. Yeah. And even then, sometimes it doesn't work. And you very rarely you think, oh my God, I've just thought of the worst possible thing that could happen in my life and it hasn't worked. Please God, don't let it happen. Please God, don't let it. You know what I mean? And then you start to cry because you're thinking, oh no, what did I think? Why did I think that? You know. But sometimes tears, you know, it's not often, but sometimes the tears don't come no matter what you think about it. And then you think, what am I doing wrong? And I'll never forget Bill once saying to me, we didn't get a standing ovation, which, as you two know, is so rare. But we didn't get this standing ovation. And he came backstage and he said, you know whose fault that was, don't you? And I said, no, because I've no clue. He said, yours. I said, mine. And I've never forgotten it. He said some terrible things to me over the times. And I know if he watches this, he'll know what I mean. But he said, it's yours. He said, you didn't cry. I said, I did. I hadn't cried. I said, Bill, I'm telling you, the tears were streaming. And they were. No, you've got to make yourself, you've got to get into the moment if you can.
You know, Lynn.
But it's just a job, for God's sake.
I know. But you're right, though. We get asked that a lot. The question we get asked a lot is from students is that, you know, when you're in a long run, whether you've done 20 odd years or you're just doing a year run, you know, it's still it is hard work in the sense that it's 8 shows a week and it's the repetition and a lot of students ask us, how do you manage that? How do you genuinely start on a Monday and give it everything the same as you do on a Saturday night? Do you know what I mean? Do you have a knack for that, or do you just not think about it and just do it, or do you?
Well, I don't think about it really. If I thought about it, I'd probably just go home. I don't think about it, but I do whinge a lot. You know, I whinge a lot more than I did 22 years ago, especially on a Saturday when people start acting, you know, in the show. And I think to myself, and it gets longer and longer, and the spaces between the scenes, you know, and you think, just get on with it. Come on, the car's waiting. I'm going home, you know. But it's no, it's not really something I've ever thought about. As I say, I do complain and I do say, oh God, 2 shows today, how am I going to get through this? But you just do it, don't you?
You know, that's always my kind of answer, Mike's as well. You just kind of, as soon as the music starts and you're on stage, you just kind of get into it, don't you?
Yeah.
And you know, as much as you have been half an hour before going, oh, because I used to go, oh, it's 2 shows back to backs on a Saturday. You're like,
yeah, oh. Yeah. How am I going to get through this?
But then you get into it and you start loving it again, and it goes, I suppose.
Well, I don't think there's another overture like Blood Brothers. And I think if ever you're thinking to yourself on the side of the stage, as I do, oh my God, you know, what time is it? I've got 3 hours of this, you know, and then the music kicks in and the violins and that those voices, and you just think, I'm so lucky. you know. But then again, in the interval, you still think, don't you? I've still got an hour. It's the longest show in the world.
It is a long one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't get very cheery in the second half, so you're like, oh.
And do you not find as well, I don't know about the men, but the women get a Blood Brothers face. You do so much crying,
Yeah.
you know, that you start off looking quite lively and, you know, going to rehearsal, you say, my God, you're looking good, you know. And yeah, well, it's because I'm not doing Blood Brothers. You know, I'm not crying every 2 minutes. I'm not streaming. Because by the time you've rubbed your eyes and you're crying, you wake up every morning like you've been smacked by every boxer in the world, you know.
In all the years I've done it, I was always like, oh, you look really well. You can't be working then in the show.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks. No, I'm not actually. You're right.
Well, you were quite funny though, because you were always great fun until it got to that end scene.
Oh.
And I'll never forget, I came up, when I first started, I came up and was just before the end scene, and I was trying to have a bit of a laugh because I thought we were still in the same mood. And somebody said, Lynn, pulled me to one side and they said, not now. Not now. He's now getting ready for the big scenes. And I said, oh, I didn't realise, sorry. So we have a method actor here.
Not at all. But, you know,
He was just in a bad mood.
I'm wrong. People are sneezing in the wings and coughing.
Lynn, we've had some questions from teachers and students around the country from schools we've done workshops with. This one's come from a teacher. And she said, when you've obviously, I mean, the current format as the tour closes, I know it's very different now because of what's gone on. It would normally close for the summer and then possibly close for Christmas. Or if you've had a break from the show, when you go back, the question is, do you have any particular garments or costumes or props that help you get back into the character after a break? Is there anything that helps you feel Mrs. J?
No. No, my big problem is that when I go back on and David Hoy comes in with my costumes, usually I can't get into them. So I've then got to think, I better start dieting. I better start losing some weight, stop drinking the wine, you know, stop eating the chocolate and get back in the costumes. No, there's not really, I'm trying to think. No, there's not, no.
No.
I don't know how,
No, no. If there isn't, there isn't, you know.
No, I think it's more getting on set that makes me, you know,
Right.
and backstage. It's everything that happens backstage when you see everybody running around getting the props organised. That kind of thing gets me in. But the costumes, no, it's more a case of, will I get in it tonight? You know, that's the problem.
Danielle used to say that she's got a Monday costume.
And yeah, well, Danielle makes me die because every time we have a break, we go back into that. She rings me up and she says, "Oh, Lynn, I've put on so much weight. I don't think I'm going to get into my skirt, the little short skirt, you know." And I said, "Yes, you will." Well, we went back one time, and she came down. She said, "Lynn, I'm going to try my skirt on. Will you come up?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I will." I went up and she tried it on. She couldn't get in it. She couldn't do the zip up. So David Hoy had to go and get one with an elastic waist. So she came down. I was raw. I was in stitches. I was crying. I went downstairs, tried my wedding costume on and came back up. I said, "Look at this. I couldn't do my zip up." I was in exactly the same situation. It's awful, you know, when you stop working, all that running around. I know we don't run around as much as you lads do. I especially don't, but you'd be surprised, you know, running up and down the stairs and, you know, running across the stage and things. The weight goes on. It's shocking.
I remember when I ever had a break from the show, and Michelle had phoned up when you go back in the West End after 6 months out and go, "What size are you now, Stan?" I'm like, "Well, I'm the same size as I was." And when I get starting the first day, she goes, "Yeah." I went, "Oh, these fit." I told you. She goes, "Yeah, I brought you the size up." You can just take your size down once you've lost a bit of weight.
It's terrible. Well, I mean, the way the Mickeys run around, and you know, I mean, I've seen you sweat like buckets. I mean, it's no wonder you lost weight. I mean, you've only got to stop for a few weeks, and you know, back to normal.
Absolutely.
You know, your volume's going, Stan.
Yeah, you've gone dead quiet there.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. I knew I could depend on you.
Don't get wrong,
He's gone again.
Have I?
Yeah, you've gone really quiet there, mate.
While you're sorting it out, lads.
That looks nice.
Okay, so this one's from a student, Lynn.
Yeah.
And this is one that's asked all the time. So and we could probably write a book, but what's the worst thing that's ever happened on stage? And the question was your very best, worst, gone wrong moment.
Oh my God. Well, it's happened twice to me. I went on tour a couple of years ago. I went on stage and just to the opening number, I sang Tell Me It's Not True, and I turned around full of the joys of spring. Once I had a husband, and I sang the first verse and couldn't remember the second verse. And Graham Martin, God love him, who we all miss, every one of us miss so much. Graham was whispering to me the words, but he wasn't saying it loud enough. So I kept saying, what? What did you say? The band kept playing and they were all looking at me, you know, and the group, they were all running around and everything. And I said, so what's next? And he went, I said, I can't hear you. And this is all on mic. I did not sing another verse until Tim Churchill shouted, get off, everybody off, right? And they all ran, and Danny Taylor was going, what's happening? What's going on here? It was horrendous. I was shaking because I still had 20 minutes to go on stage and I didn't get through one verse. I managed to get through everything else, walked off stage, and about 2 weeks later, I did the same thing again. It was horrendous. That's the worst thing because I don't think you two ever forgot anything, did you?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, you didn't? No, never. Not like that. Not to completely ruin the first scene. But the funny thing was that Paula, I think it was Paula, I've forgotten who it was now, had friends in and they came back and she said, I couldn't believe what Lynn did at the beginning, can you? And they said, what? And they hadn't even noticed. And I hadn't sung one word of the song. Terrible.
Brilliant.
So there you go, that's the worst thing. I could come up with loads of others because I'm always doing something wrong.
We'll come back to the Blood Brothers stuff in a minute. Let's just jump back a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your career before Blood Brothers.
Before Blood Brothers?
Yeah.
Just before Blood Brothers, I was slapping up and down the country doing cabaret, going from up to Skegness and then down to Plymouth, and oh my God, it just days, just trying to make ends meet, basically, just working. And then, of course, I was lucky enough to get that. Before that, years ago, obviously, I was with the New Seekers, which was pretty good. And I don't know what else to tell you, really. That was, before that was with the Nocturnes. Before that, when I was 14, I started with the Girl Trio, doing the working men's clubs. So I think I learnt my craft, basically, in the working men's clubs and doing all the cabaret stuff,
Okay, brilliant.
That must have stood you in good stead then for the whole, 8 shows a week kind of.
I can't hear you, Stan, say again.
That must have stood you in really good stead then for, joining a show where it's 8 shows a week then. Because you're used to that, touring around the country, doing cabaret and, because that must be hard work as well.
Oh, God, I can't tell you. I mean, I used to do 5 nights a week for 6 months doing Pontins. And as I said, I would go from Skegness down to Plymouth, then back up to Weston-super-Mare, then and every night I had Ryan. I just had Ryan. So I was coming home every night and then going out the following day. And yeah, it's tough work. And you're working for like 250 quid, which sounds a lot of money. But in actual fact, when you take out your commission, your agent's commission, you take out your petrol, the wear and tear on the car, it wasn't a great deal of money. It was, it was, and it tore me apart. It was hard work, but yes, you're right. It does stand you in good stead. Yeah. But I'll never forget, I auditioned whilst I was in Blood Brothers. I was about to leave and I auditioned for Mamma Mia and for the part of the mother. And I had my Blood Brothers face, so it wasn't a good look. But anyway, so I went in to did the audition. I got 5 recalls, and I worked with the Loveday, who was one of the directors or something. I can't remember. They took me and they brought one of the actors in to work with me. And I actually thought, oh my God, I've got this. This is in the bag. Yeah. And I went down and met the Swedish guy from ABBA. I think it was Bjorn. Anyway, and he saw me, and on the train home, I got a phone call from my agent, who she didn't put it very well, because she was an agent who was helping me out before I went to my other agent. I found him a few months later, and she said, "You didn't get it, Lynn." And I said, "Really?" And I was absolutely gobsmacked. I couldn't believe it. And I said, oh, right. And she said, well, he didn't feel that you could handle 8 shows a week. I said, I'm doing 8 shows a week. I'm doing Blood Brothers 8 shows a week. I've been doing it for 3 years. No, didn't get the part because he didn't think I could handle, and he felt I looked too old. And it was a week before my 50th birthday. I nearly killed myself. I can't. So, but you see, he didn't think I could do 8 shows a week. You know, people underestimate what people can do because of age. You know, age.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, it hasn't actually, has it? It's got nothing to do with it.
I'm still doing 8 shows a week, so.
You, in terms of like Mike said, we moved away from your early career, but then you've done a bit in and out of Emmerdale for a while.
Yeah.
And one of the questions we get is, you know, often with TV and theatre and the differences and things like that. But what are the different challenges, do you think, when you're working in front of a live audience opposed to working in front of the camera?
I think with a live audience, as I proved on the opening when I couldn't remember the lyrics, you can't go back and do it again. With television, you can. I mean, they'll just shout cut and you go back and you start again. But you don't get that feedback from television that you get from a live audience, and there's nothing like it. I don't know if you two agree, but when you're standing there at the end and the curtain goes down and then there's a roar from the audience, and when the curtain, well, not the curtain goes down, but the lights go down, and then when the lights come back up, they're all standing up. There's nothing in the world like that, you know. So I don't say that I prefer theatre to television, because I love the fact that television, if you do make a mistake, you can do it again, and then you relax. So, strangely enough, I found it much more relaxing doing television than I do doing theatre. I'm a nervous wreck doing theatre.
Yeah, I guess you're stuck in the moment of theatre, aren't you? It's live. And...
Yeah, it's like a freight train. Well, not a freight train, like a road train. Once it starts, there's no getting off. You know? It keeps going.
I know the answer to this one. And so does Steve. Do you have any? This is a question from a teacher. Do you have any rituals before the show that you do before every single show? I don't think anyone that's ever worked with you is probably saying something to camera now.
Yeah, she's a bloody nightmare. Because I'll tell you what, they've even got worse since I worked with Stan. So, I mean, they've got so much worse. Oh, my God. I have to, when I'm in the dressing room, I have to put everything on in a certain order. And once I get, I can't go onto the stage until they actually call me, you know, beginners. I can't go on to the stage. Once I get on stage, David Hoy has to put my coat on, and he started that. He said, oh, no, I do Lynn's coat. So now I've got that as a ritual. Then I have to go round to the opposite side, and I have to wait there. It'll go on forever. I'm telling you now, you need another 20 minutes. So I have to go around the other side and say, have a good one, gang, but I can't say that until the overture starts. Then I walk to Donna Marie, give her a kiss. I wish David Hoy good luck, walk back round the other side, give everybody a kiss, but it has to be in the right order. So I have to go through, you know, and if I go in the wrong order, I have to start again. Then I have to go to Christina or whoever's on the book, give them the thumbs up. Then I give the stage manager the thumbs up. It's awful. It's horrendous. Before I actually go on, I give G the last kiss. Oh, I used to give G the last kiss. He gets the last kiss. We walk on stage. Oh, God, I'm fill up. Anyway, I walk on stage and then sorry, guys.
Oh, don't apologise.
Then, oh my God, then I have to click my heel and I walk on stage in a certain time. So have I got rituals? Oh my God.
It's funny, like, the last time I did it with you was around last Christmas, and I think I don't know where I did a couple of venues, and one of them backstage just before the show, it was pitch black. There was no lights at all in the wings. You were going up to people saying, I don't know who you are, but have a good one, gang.
Yeah.
She's still doing it even when it's pitch black.
I have to, otherwise I go on stage and if anything goes wrong, I go, that's because I didn't say have a good one to that person.
Just mention there G again, because those teachers and students watching across the country, they will have seen G, but they probably don't know. We're talking about actor Graham Martin. It's the most adorable human being in the world, and at the same time the most professional actor as well.
Oh, So underrated, just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal actor, unbelievable.
And sadly, passed away just a few months ago. So we're all kind of,
In
I
shock.
think it shook the whole family, the whole Blood Brothers family, hasn't it? It's like, you don't feel like you're ever sort of moving on from it. It's still a shock when you think about Jay, but
I know.
and there's been so many others down the years, haven't there, that have
Yeah.
Steve,
He was so unassuming. He was so unassuming, so quiet, just so gentle, and he was just a really decent human being, you know.
So if your catchphrase in Blood Brothers, Lynn, was "Have a good one, gang," what would G's backstage catchphrase be?
What are you having for your tea?
What you having for your tea? No matter what day it was, what you having for your tea?
Yeah, and I'll never forget, I used to give him that so often. I'd give him a kiss and we'd step up the little steps and we'd stand in the wings and the music was playing and he'd be messing with the camera to make sure the light was working, because it never was. And he'd make sure the light was going off and he'd go, "What are you having for your tea?" Just before, and people think you're getting in the mood, if only they knew.
People probably following some of the cast on Twitter and social media and that are thinking, what the hell does this mean? Because randomly people are putting now chicken casserole tonight, Jake, and it's like,
oh God, what a great guy.
Steve,
Brothers, Lynn, you appeared in obviously the West End to start with, and then you appeared there for a number of years, and then the tour. Do you have a preference? Do you prefer one or the other? The tour.
Sorry, did you say the West End or tour?
Yeah, do you prefer the West End or the tour?
I prefer the West End for being able to get home, because I've always been a home bird, but more so now than ever, and so I miss the West End. I love it because I can get in the car and I can come home. However, when you're on tour, it becomes more of a family. And you're going from gig to gig, venue to venue, and you're having different audiences every night. You can guarantee that the place is full, and it's actually a completely different vibe, you know. And very often in the West End, I don't know whether you found this or not, but you get a lot of foreigners that perhaps are seeing it because they feel they ought to see it because somebody's told them it's a fantastic show, which it is, but sometimes they don't always grasp the comedy or the humour of it, you know. So but when you go on tour, it's there immediate, you know. But so they've both got their pluses, you know. And
do you find from venue to venue you have like if you're in, is there certain humour in certain areas where they'll laugh at something in one place that maybe they won't in another, moving around the country? Almost like a Lions audience. Go on.
You find that, you find that very much so in different areas. I mean, I'll come off and I'll say to Tim, "Oh my God, they're not enjoying it." And he goes, "I think you'll find they are." And I'll say, "Well, they're not laughing." "Well, I think you'll find that they are. They're just being very quiet." And then at the end, it's a big roar and they're all up. And you know, people enjoy things different ways. You know what I mean? Maybe they're chuckling inside. I don't know. Just wish they'd chuckle loud, you know. Just, you know, forget
I think you're right. I think you're right, you know, because when you're on tour, when I was on tour, I think we were at the Empire one week, and the next week we were in Bournemouth. Now, you couldn't get two different audiences, being really raucous and then very reserved.
Yeah.
And it's quite off-putting because you're not used to it.
No, that's right.
And
you get the difference.
They're not going to laugh.
Yeah. And then you get the different size stages as well, don't you? The different rakes.
Yeah.
So, you know, you go on at the beginning of a show and you suddenly look like a drunk person because the rake is so steep and you're teetering off. You know, and then you go on another rake and it's flat. So it really is. It's actually like a bit like being in cabaret. You know, you just move from venue to venue. So that's enjoyable, but not the dig side of it. The dig side of it is horrendous. You know, horrendous.
Yeah, it was the rake, Lynn. It wasn't the wine. It was the rake.
It's nothing to do with the wine.
Now, I'll ask this question, Lynn, and I'm going to hope that the answer isn't Donna in Mamma Mia. So someone asked, you've played one of the most iconic roles in musical theatre. If Willie Russell hadn't written Blood Brothers, what would be your dream role? What's the role that you'd have really?
Gypsy. Not Mama Rose. Mama Rose. I'd love to play Mama Rose in Gypsy.
Yeah, gorgeous part.
Oh my God. I and I've wanted to do that for years. Imelda Staunton did it, as you know,
Yeah.
West End. And my problem is that I can't do an American accent. Well, my problem is I can't do any accents, but I certainly can't do an American one. I can if, do you remember David Hunt? The wonderful David Hunt. Well, David, I used to get scripts, I still do actually, and I'll say to him, David, how do I do this? And he does it phonetically for me. So I'm absolutely marvelous when I go in for an audition, but take me off the script, no clue at all. If you give me another part of this, the script to read, no, I can't do it. You know, so, but yeah, I'd love to play Rosalind Russell's part in, because I didn't particularly enjoy the version in the West End. I didn't like the way they wrote Rosalind Russell's part, because she had so much dignity and you know, character, but they made her to be a little whimpering woman, and I thought it should be more like the Rosalind Russell side of it, you know. Imelda Staunton was fantastic, but I prefer that version, you know, so that's what I'd like to do. Come on, Bill.
Come on, Bill. Come on.
Go on, Steve.
I was just questioning you back to sort of Blood Brothers. And and it's another question that gets asked a lot from students, because a lot of the work we do with the students is around their exams, because they are lots of students at school still do study Blood Brothers for their GCSEs. There's certain questions and scenes that crop up all of the time, and one of them is around going on from that. One of them was about the locket, when you give Eddie the locket, and there's always a big debate with students as who's the picture of in the locket. Is it Eddie or is it Mickey? You know what I mean? Are you giving him a picture of you and him, or are you giving a picture of you and Mickey? And I thought, did we get a definitive answer, Mike, of Willie?
We did in the end, but it's really interesting, Lynn, because it's popped up in a lot of the social media groups, that, you know, the Blood Brothers student social media groups the teachers are in. Yeah. And it was really split, and I've always had a clear answer in my head. I thought, what if I've got it wrong? So we asked Mark Hutchinson this, and we asked who we were working with the other day. I'm a bit fan we were working with there the other day. What in your head are you giving a picture of Mickey or a picture of Eddie?
I'm giving a picture of Mickey, but obviously I'm wrong.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Oh, am I?
That's what I've always thought.
I've always thought that, but it's when you start speaking to people and they can really weight the argument the other way. It's fascinating, you know.
Yeah.
And Willie was very generous with his answer. He said, "Well, that's what I wrote, but it's what you, to an audience, it's what you find." With a lot of the questions he was asked, he said, "That's not really what I had in mind with that bit, but if that's what you're finding, that's up to the students. You know, that's it's theirs. He's giving it to them." So.
That was a bit more, like you, Lynn, it's Mickey and you.
I mean, first of all, I wouldn't quite know where she'd get a picture of Eddie. You know, she'd only have a picture of him as a baby, but she gave him, he was days old when he went, so she wouldn't have a picture of Eddie, as far as I was concerned anyway. I just always thought it was Mickey and me.
And I think that sets up the later on when you get the scene with Mrs. Lyons and Eddie at the start of the second half, where she sees the locket and says, "When were you photographed with this woman?"
Yeah.
You know, then Eddie says, "No, that's not me. Why do you think that's me?" You know.
Yeah.
I think that sets that up very nicely. So I've always thought it was quite cut and dry, but it's the way we've had some random things about Seven, didn't we? In the 7-Year Itch, Mike, and Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe, I had that.
Yeah.
You do know it means, you know, some student wrote to me and said, "You do realise you're singing about sex." First of all, I didn't think, I thought I've not read this correctly. And she said, "We went dancing," she actually means because of the 7 children. And I thought, no, you're going back, you know, to the 50s. And they went dancing. They went to the Mikado and they went dancing, you know. But anyway, she said, "Oh, my professor told me that it actually means sex." Whatever you want, darling, whatever you want.
We asked Willie about Marilyn Monroe because it comes up.
Oh, tell me what sex.
No, it wasn't at all. I mean, his answer was brilliant, because a lot of the students, because Marilyn Monroe was so long ago, they're like, "Who is Marilyn Monroe?" A lot of them then, some of them say why Marilyn Monroe is the 7, because like Steve said, the 7-Year Itch, and they meet when they're 7, they meet again when they're 14. Is it the rule of 7?
Yeah.
Why Marilyn Monroe? And he said, well, to be honest, because it rhymed. So he actually got
Right.
his ukulele out, played a little bit, and he put it in there.
Oh, and actually, no, I think it was somebody else. He was sat there and he'd written one sad husband, you know, this sort of, and he got his ukulele out when we were doing the Q&A, and he played it and he sang it. And he said, I got to that bit, guys, and he went, oh. And someone else, I think, said Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, really?
Oh, Marilyn Monroe. Oh, yeah, that's all right. That's it. Works.
Hey, well, look at that. How it worked all the way through. It was fantastic. Yeah. Oh, my God, I didn't know that. I've learned something.
Yeah. What's your favourite scene, Lynn? Or have you got a favourite moment in the show that you kind of cherish?
I love the kitchen scene because I used to have so much fun in the kitchen scene. And I like that. Goodness me, there are so many I actually like. Obviously the end, you know, because that is the most touching scene I think that anybody's ever written. I mean, it's just amazing the way it was written. But yeah, there's loads of them that I love, you know. I like the scene with Linda because I never get to actually interact with Linda apart from the very end. When she runs on. And if you're lucky and it's not Danielle, she'll run on properly, but Danielle has a tendency to trip up now and again, which means that we can never get through the scene, and then we have to go through 2 days of rehearsing it before we actually go on. We giggle so much, it's awful. But the scenes with Mrs. Lyons, the only problem with, it's not problem is, sometimes I think the kids, when you've got lots of children in watching, you know, students, I don't think they realise that that's actually setting up the story, you know, and it can be a little bit boring for them, I think, because they're waiting. They know that these men are going to come on dressed as kids and the women are going to come on dressed as girls, and they're waiting for all this. They're waiting for the laughs and giggles, you know. But there's actually some great scenes between Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. Lyons right at the very beginning, I think, anyway, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, they're really important because it sets the whole
That's right.
Doesn't it? The whole plot of
tells the story before it actually happens.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is that the end then? Have you run out of questions, boys?
There was there was one that we did miss. So
on what?
Okay, I think we did touch on it because of the dramatic scene in it. We just talked about what you call the kitchen scene then, which is and that's the scene with the knife, isn't it?
Yeah.
As an audience, we're left thinking that Mrs. Lyons and Mrs. J hate each other because of what's happened from then. You know, they forget about the early scenes. So does that tell the whole story, or do you think perhaps they've got more in common than you think? Initially, do they get on? You know, do they get on to start with?
Gosh, I wish I was this in depth when I learned to row. I mean, I'll never forget when I was just changing the subject slightly when I was doing Footloose. I'll never forget the director sitting there. She said, "Now, let's get into your character. Where do you think she was when she was 18?" Basically, I don't care. You know, I'm just going on, saying the lines, collecting the money at the end of the week, and I'm going. However, going back to Blood Brothers, which is a completely different kettle of fish, she says, it is. I think obviously we liked each other at the very beginning, but I think there is for me personally, there is an animosity because she took my child. Mm-hmm. I know I gave him, I know that I said, yes, you can bring him up, but it says at the beginning she has a heart of stone, and I don't think Mrs. J has a heart of stone. I think that she's got a big heart, and I think that shows all the way through, and I think that's why the audience feel for Mrs. J at the very end. But I don't think Mrs. J feels for Mrs. Lyons, and I don't think Mrs. Lyons feels anything for me. This is how I play it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, once I've moved and I've gone up market, so to speak, and she appears in my kitchen, she's crossed a boundary, and to me there's no love there at all for Mrs. Lyons. I take that back because at the beginning of the scene, I feel a bit sorry for her that she's, you know, he always knew, You know, I think he knows. So I go over to try and console her, but in actual fact, it's not really from the heart. It's just, you know, another woman seeing another woman upset. That's it. But she turns, and I can turn even bigger. So, and as a mother, I can tell you now, I can turn. Oh boy, can I turn. And I'm sure Lou can as well, Stan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just highlight what you said there, Lynn, because it's really interesting what you said there. For GCSE drama students have to write about how they play it, and what you talked about then is exactly how they'd have to sort of write on the exam papers. So you feel for us, so you move into consoler and you put your hands out, and that's kind of like textbook answer. You've got to talk about the physicality and really interesting what you said about the stone line. It's the one question we haven't asked, but you've just answered it. If you heard the story of the Johnston twins, would you describe the mother as having a stone in place of a heart? And you wouldn't. So you've answered.
I don't think so. I certainly don't think so. I don't think. I think Mrs. J. I think she always wanted to do the right thing. She did the wrong thing. She did the wrong thing. Totally did the wrong thing, because there's no way in the world I would have given my child up. I'd have lived on the streets with him. There's no way anybody would take my child from me. However, she didn't feel she had any alternative. She didn't know what to do. And she was caught at a vulnerable moment. She was pregnant. And any woman that's having a baby will tell you that you are vulnerable, you know, and you're not always thinking quite straight. Your hormones are all over the place. She let her bring the child up, but she didn't in any way think that she was never going to see this child again. She says that, so long as I can see him every day, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, she didn't think she was giving the child away, but Mrs. Lyons took advantage of that. And you see, now I'm getting very angry with Mrs. Lyons. I should probably play my air and I'll play it very different.
Final little one, Lynn. So we do a lot of work in like all girls schools, and
I know you never asked me to come and do anything with you.
You know, will you come in and do the next workshop with us? It's a verbal agreement if you say yeah.
No, I'd love to come and, I mean, I don't know how good, I mean, I probably wouldn't be any good, but I could answer questions, and I'd love to come and do a question and answer with you if ever you wanted me to.
We'd love you to, Lynn. We'd love to do that.
Yeah.
If there's any, so there's going to be students like watching it now thinking, I'd love to play Mrs. Johnston, I'd love to go into the business. It puts you on the spot a little bit here, like one bit of advice, or what's the one thing you'd say to someone? So let's say you've got a year 10 or a year 11 student, passionate about drama, goes to see Blood Brothers, comes out thinking that's what I want to do. What's the one bit of advice you give them?
First of all, and I mean this absolutely seriously, my first word of advice would be look after your teeth. Right, so from somebody that's had problems with your teeth. I know it sounds silly, but just because children tend to say, "Oh, I'll go to the dentist," no, I don't. You know, it doesn't matter. Look after your teeth, because they are a big part of this business. As far as the actual acting side of it, just write to anybody and everybody, asking them, will they see you? Because it's not always easy. You think sometimes I've got a fantastic agent at the moment, a fantastic agent. I'm with Keddy Scott. But I've gone through some bad ones, and it's not always easy to find a good agent, you know. So if you say to somebody, you've got to find yourself a good agent, that's not always easy to do, because they'll say to you, well, we want to see you working. Well, how do I get the work if I haven't got an agent? So I would say, and it's always worked for me from right through my years, write to everybody and anybody, producers, directors, anybody you want to write to. Tell them that you're desperate to work in the industry and that you just give me a go, just give me a chance. I did it with Bill, and I have had 23 years of a wonderful career in acting, thanks to writing one letter. So just write. I mean, I can tell them to rehearse, I can tell them to go to singing lessons, I can tell them to go to acting lessons. They know that. But write to everybody, and if you want something, go after it.